My name is Emma. I'm 28. In my Atlanta Southern Charm family, we don't yell, we smile. We wear pearls, drink sweet tea, and bury resentment so deep it could sprout roots. My sister, Morgan, is the perfect golden child. I'm the practical fixer. For years, I was fine with that. I was even proud of it. Until my wedding day, when my mother, Sharon, walked up to me, smiled her perfect, polite smile, and tried to take the very foundation of my new life. The reception was at the historic country club, all white columns and air thick with the smell of magnolias and old money. My new husband, Ryan, was laughing with his brother near the band. Everything was perfect, which in my family means something is about to break. 2 nights ago at the rehearsal dinner, Ryan's parents had handed me a leather-bound folder. His father, who works in finance, smiled and said, "We wanted to give you something to build a real foundation. An estate planner should have an estate of her own." Inside wasn't a check. It was a stock portfolio, $50,000. It was symbolic. It was a gesture of respect from one professional to another. It was a new, healthy root system, entirely separate from the one I came from. But my family only respects what they can control. I saw them approaching. My mother, Sharon, in a dress that cost more than my first car, her matriarch smile perfectly in place. My sister, Morgan, 25 and aspiring to be a wellness brand influencer, looking bored. "Emma, darling," my mother whispered, her hand cool on my arm as she pulled me away from the guests, just out of earshot. "You look beautiful. Now, Morgan and I were just talking." I braced myself. "You know how promising her new business idea is?" Sharon continued, her voice dropping to that smooth, persuasive tone. "She just needs a little push to get it off the ground." "Mom, not now," I said. "It is exactly now," she said, her smile tightening. "That portfolio your in-laws gave you, it's just paper money, Emma. You're an expert. You can earn it back in a year. Morgan needs it now." I stared at her, not in shock, in recognition. "She means lend," Morgan chimed in, flicking her hair. "God, relax. You owe me. Just consider it a loan." I looked past them. My father, Richard, stood a few feet behind, clutching a drink. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His entire posture was a silent, desperate plea. "Be graceful, Emma. Be the bigger person. Just absorb this. Keep the peace." My throat tightened, but it wasn't sadness. It was something sharper, something cold and clear, like ice water hitting my veins. This wasn't a request. It was an invoice. They saw my new life, my new foundation, and their first instinct was to tap it. I looked across the room, and my eyes found Ryan. He saw me. He saw them. He raised an eyebrow, a single, quiet question. "Are we doing this?" I gave one slow, definite nod. "Mom," I said, and my voice was terrifyingly calm. I knew this day would come. I reached into my clutch. Morgan's face twisted, her wellness facade cracking to reveal the entitlement underneath. "Are you kidding me? You're going to make a scene at your own wedding?" "No," I replied, my fingers finding the crisp edge of the envelope. "I'm being professional. This is a financial transaction, isn't it?" I pulled out a cream-colored business envelope. My father, Richard, looked at it like it was a snake. "Open it, Dad," I said. His hands were trembling. He took it. Sharon and Morgan leaned in, their eyes hungry, expecting a check, expecting a surrender. My father slid the single folded page out. He read the title, and his face went blank. "What is it?" Sharon snapped, yanking the paper from his hand. Morgan read over her shoulder. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute. The band was playing something soft in the background, and the contrast was sickening. Morgan looked up, her face pale. What the hell is this, Emma?" "It's a family loan agreement," I said, my voice clear enough for the nearest table to hear. "For the $50,000. I had it drafted last week. It specifies a 10% interest rate, compounded annually. All very standard, as you'd know from your business." You can't be serious," Sharon stammered, her matriarch's control completely gone. "Oh, I'm very serious," I said. I pointed to a paragraph halfway down the page. "But that's not the best part. You'll want to read Section 4, the security clause." I watched my mother's eyes scan the page. I watched them widen in disbelief. I watched Morgan's perfect, pouting smile finally shatter. "It states," I said, "that this loan is secured by a binding lien against Morgan's share of the future family inheritance, specifically her 50% stake in the Atlanta property. If she defaults, I get her share of the house." "You're threatening to take my inheritance?" Morgan's voice was a high-pitched shriek, all that curated wellness and peace gone, replaced by raw, ugly panic. The Southern charm had evaporated, revealing the rot underneath. "No," I said, my voice just as quiet, just as cold. "I'm protecting my assets. You call it family, I call it access. You've been calling it that your whole life. You posted on your startup fund page this morning asking for $2,500, telling everyone a major investor was about to come on board. You knew. You planned this." Emma, my mother, Sharon, stepped forward, her hand fluttering to her pearls. The matriarch, trying to regain control. "We are family. You don't do this to family." "You're right, Mom," I said. "You don't, but you do." I reached back into my clutch. "And you have, for a very long time." Morgan's eyes widened. "What? Another one?" "This one's for you," I said. I pulled out a second, identical cream envelope and held it out to her. Her hands wouldn't move. She just stared at it. I handed it to my father instead. "Richard, please give this to your daughter." He passed it to her like it was toxic. "Before we ever discuss a new $50,000 debt," I said, "we need to settle the old one." Morgan tore it open. It wasn't a contract. It was an invoice, an itemized bill for $15,000. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. This is crazy." "It's my college fund," I said. And just like that, I wasn't at my wedding. I was 19. I was standing at an ATM, looking at a balance of 0. Morgan, then 16, was home from an impulsive trip to Europe she'd taken to find herself. She'd borrowed my tuition money, stolen it. And when I confronted her, she cried, and my parents had erased it. I didn't have a name for it then, but I was learning the rules of the narcissistic family system. My sister, Morgan, was the golden child. She existed to be their perfect, shiny reflection. Whatever she wanted, she got. Whatever she broke, she wasn't responsible for. I was the scapegoat. I existed to carry everything they didn't want to feel. The disappointment, the rage, and all the blame. I remembered my mother's words, sharp and dismissive, as I stood there with my empty bank account. "Emma, don't be so selfish. She's young. She needed a break. You're the responsible one. You'll figure it out." I did. I got 2 jobs. I took night classes. I paid for their failure. I came back to the present. My father was staring at the floor. My mother looked like I had slapped her. Morgan was just broken. I looked my sister dead in the eyes. You have to sign the repayment agreement for the old debt, Morgan, before I will even consider discussing the new one. We left. We didn't say goodbye. We didn't cut the cake. We walked straight past the string quartet, through the grand lobby, and handed the valet our ticket. Ryan's hand was steady on the small of my back. We got into the car. The silence was absolute. This wasn't a honeymoon. It was an evacuation. We drove out of the city, the lights of Atlanta blurring behind us in the rain that had started to fall. I kept seeing my father's face, Richard, his eyes fixed on the floor, his face pale, his entire body pleading with me in that silent, enabling way he had perfected. Don't do this. Be graceful. Keep the peace. They always called it being graceful. Be the bigger person, Emma. What they really meant was be the one who absorbs the pain. For decades, I wore responsibility like armor, thinking it made me strong. But that night, driving away from my own wedding, I realized it was never armor. It was a cage. And the heaviest part of walking away isn't the explosion you leave behind. It's the sudden, terrifying silence. It's the horrifying realization that you were never in the cage. You were the cage. You were the only thing holding it all together. And the moment you walk away, the whole rotten structure just collapses. The retaliation began before the honeymoon drive was even over. That's how it always works. The person who speaks first gets to control the narrative. My family is built on controlling the narrative. Morgan, naturally, went public. Her $2,500 startup fund post, the one she'd posted before the wedding, was updated. She hadn't gotten a cent, except for $35 from 2 anonymous accounts, one of which was just named Karma. She added a new post. Some people would rather destroy their family than see their sister succeed. Pray for us. My mother was more subtle. She posted a filtered photo of a magnolia blossom on her Facebook. The caption read, "A mother's heart breaks when one of her children forgets their roots, praying for those who have lost their way." They were already rewriting the memory, painting me as the aggressor, the cold, ungrateful daughter who had attacked them at a wedding for no reason. I was reading these as Ryan pumped gas, and I felt that old, familiar shame creeping in, that "am I the crazy one" feeling. Then my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't seen in years. It was my Aunt Diane, my mother's sister, the original scapegoat, the one my mother had cut out of the family a decade ago for being too emotional and dramatic, words I was now very familiar with. "Emma, I heard you didn't just rattle the cage, you burned it to the ground. I'm proud of you. Don't let them convince you that their polite poison is love." I held the phone. I hadn't realized I was crying until Ryan got back in the car. We drove, we stayed quiet, we healed. A week passed. A week of silence. No calls, no more posts. And then, the final gambit. A text from Morbin. "Mom is in the hospital. It's bad. You should come." I stared at it. No details, no what happened, just the vague, powerful bait. I replied, "What happened?" 2 hours later, another text from her. "Just come. She's asking for you. You'll regret it if you don't." There it was. The same old manipulation. The guilt wrapped in a threat. "It's a trap," I said to Ryan. "I know," he said, already grabbing his keys. "Let's go." We drove back to Atlanta. We walked into the hospital. It smelled like bleach and fear. We found the room number. And there she was, My mother, Sharon, propped up on the pillows, her hair perfectly coiffed, a full face of makeup, wearing a silk robe. She didn't look sick. She looked like she was holding court. Morgan was in the chair beside her, scrolling through her phone. "Emma," my mother said, her voice a theatrical, breathy whisper, "you came." "You said it was bad," I said, my voice flat. "She had a scare," Morgan snapped, standing up. "She's been under so much stress. You did this to her." "I did what?" I asked. "I stopped being your bank?" "You're not being fair, Emma," my mother said, reaching her hand out to me. "I just want my family back. I want us to fix this." "There's nothing to fix, Mom. This is what it is." "How can you be so cold?" she whispered, and a single, perfect tear rolled down her cheek. "Because I'm not the one who's cold," I said. "I'm just the one who stopped pretending." "You're right, Sharon. She's not." We all turned. My Aunt Diane was standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. She looked older, but her eyes were exactly as I remembered them, clear and utterly fearless. My mother's face, the sick patient facade, vanished. It was replaced by pure, cold fury. "Diane, what are you doing here?" "I'm still listed as her emergency contact, sister," Diane said, walking into the room. "Funny you forgot to change that." She stood next to me. "Using the hospital again, Sharon? That's a classic. You pulled this on me 20 years ago when I refused to co-sign your business loan. Remember? You had heart palpitations." My mother was speechless. Diane looked at her, then at me. "She's not sick, Emma. She's just manipulative. And she's not mad because you said no. She's mad because you said it out loud, and you had a contract." Morgan started to yell something about respect and ambush, but I wasn't listening. I looked at my mother, sitting there in her silk robe, her performance ruined. I looked at my sister, whose entire identity was built on other people's money. I turned and walked to the door. Ryan was right behind me. "Emma? Emma, don't you walk away from me!" my mother yelled, her voice no longer frail. I stopped in the doorway. I turned back. "I'm done," I said. "Don't contact me again. Don't send letters. Don't text. We're finished." I didn't wait for a reply. We walked out. And for the first time, I didn't feel rage or sadness, or even responsibility. I just felt free. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of the purest, cleanest silence I have ever known. We got back to our apartment. We started unpacking. Ryan hung pictures while I made coffee. It was normal. It was so beautifully, wonderfully normal. Then the last card came. It was waiting in our mailbox. Cream-colored cardstock, my mother's perfect, sweeping handwriting. No return address. It was slipped in, not mailed. A final, ghostly summons. I stared at it. I didn't feel the old spike of adrenaline, that jolt of what now? I just felt tired. I opened it. The note was short. "Family is missing you. Come home when you are ready to be a part of this family again." It wasn't an apology. It was a command, an invitation to return to my role as the scapegoat, to come back to the cage. It wasn't an apology. It was a command, an invitation to return to my role as the scapegoat, to come back to the cage. It was a final attempt to reset the narrative, to pretend I was the one who had left and that they were the ones graciously waiting. I looked at the card. "You're taught that blood is thicker than water. It's the oldest rule in the book. But they never tell you what to do when that blood is toxic. They don't tell you that sometimes the bravest act of love isn't forgiveness. It's refusal.
refusing to be the sacrifice that keeps the performance going, refusing to keep setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. I tore the card in half, then in quarters. The sound was quiet, neat, clinical. I dropped the pieces into the trash. That night, I did something I should have done a decade ago. I opened my phone. I deleted Sharon. I deleted Richard. I deleted Morgan. My hands didn't even shake. Then, I went to my emergency contacts. I deleted my mother's name. I added Ryan. And right below him, I added Aunt Diane. Ryan and I started building our own rituals. Takeout on Fridays, no phones allowed. Saturday drives with no destination. We cooked, we talked, we just existed. The silence in our apartment wasn't scary anymore. It wasn't the heavy, watchful silence of my childhood. It was just quiet. It was peace. I didn't lose my family. I just stopped letting them use me to feel whole. I stopped letting them define what that word meant. And in that new, earned quiet, for the very first time in my entire life, I finally found myself.